Call to order at 6:30.
Yep.
Mike Ahern, Chairman, John Renlet, Vice Chair, Paul Wilson, Pat Roach, John Kelly, Dick Lewis, Selectman's Rep, Ray Gosney, Selectman's Rep, alternate is here.
And Bob Dragon's excused.
Brings us to item number 3, public comments. Seeing none. Item number 4, administrative matters. Number 5, correspondence.
We received 2 notices of regional impact, one from the town of Danbury. I guess they're really going with the heavy region. They are going to be holding a public hearing on January 8th to basically have a site plan review for changes to Ragged Mountain Resort. They're going to expand their snowmaking and perhaps build a new country inn. So
Ragged?
Yeah, Ragged. So if anyone wants to look at that. And Town of Woodstock sent us in, I mentioned this to you before, in September they sent us a notification on an upgrade to one of their cell phone towers at 339 Cox Farm Road in North Woodstock. And I just received this morning another one for January 14th. So it's just, I guess, the continuing review of this. It's just an upgrade to it. The towers are not going to increase in height, so there's no impact. They're just upgrading their antennas. So that's that for correspondence. I'm sorry. Also, if I may, I had spoken to you folks last meeting, early December. One of the planning board chair, I guess, from Bridgewater wanted to get together and speak to regional issues, and he called again today, and we've tentatively set up our next work session date, which is February 7th, to have them over for a conversation, and that's about as much information as I've got to tell you.
Good.
And they may be bringing some folks from Hebron's planning board with them, so we'll have a conversation in February.
We're pretty close anyway, right?
Yeah. Yep. So that's just an FYI for an upcoming agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just to tag on to her FYI, last time we did that, in Bridgewater and Hebron, it was all about the Class 6 roads that run through all of the various jurisdictions, and they wanted to have a conversation about trying to coordinate all of our activities to make sure the left hand and the right hand knew what was going on.
Yeah, I think that I'm getting a hint that might be the same item, so let's just see.
Item 6, assignments, board reports of committees. Board of Selectmen liaison, Mr. Lewis.
Not a lot to report. At the last meeting of the board, we voted to forward on to the planning board the zoning articles, zoning petition articles. That's really about it.
Conservation Commission, Mr. Wilson.
Nothing to report.
Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Nothing to report. In the interim, they are meeting next week on a rehearing for some billboards, which will be interesting.
Okay. Water and Sewer District.
It doesn't have a,
Was,
it was Rhonda's.
Rhonda.
Yeah.
Okay. Pemmichewasset Local River Advisory Committee, Mr. Kelly.
I gave the minutes
John's
to Penny.
Gotten these land use maps, which I will duplicate and pass out as soon as we fix the copier.
Okay. Plymouth Regional Emergency Management Committee.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Town Planner.
We're just getting ready for town meeting. As I said earlier, it takes a lot of statutory requirements.
Can I just ask one question on the zoning board, on that rehearing? What, the ZBA, denied the application, so it's the applicant coming back for the...
Yeah, there was some procedural prejudice, so they opted for rehearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And excuse me, if I could just ask, what is the date of town meeting?
It's the second Tuesday, so I think it's the 13th.
Good luck day.
12th.
The 12th.
12th, yeah, Tuesday, March 12th.
Is that
Well, I mean, I guess we're we're not
Meeting date is usually the day after.
deliberation.
Tuesday, the town meeting is usually Wednesday.
Wednesday, oh, okay, well then I'm sorry. I didn't realize you did it separately.
So 13th.
I come from a
313,
very
13.
little town. I know last year there was a change, but I don't think we've received any.
The select board voted to move back to the traditional
Right.
day after.
So I'm sorry, yep, voting 12 and...
Okay, so item number 7, new business.
Okay, we are required to have public hearings if there are any anticipated changes to zoning, particularly when there have been petitions submitted by citizens. And as you all know, we have 3 interrelated petitions that have been submitted. So we need to choose at least one, and I would definitely suggest 2, make the date for 2 now so we can publicly notice them, public hearings very shortly. According to the local government center, Friday, January 11th is the last day to post and publish the notice, which is part of my responsibility. So in order to meet the 10 plus 2 day statutory requirement, we can hold our first meeting no later than January 22nd, which is a Tuesday. That's the last day available by this requirement to hold our first public hearing.
What time?
I would say our standard time, 6:30. I mean, it's the board's prerogative, but if you,
January 22nd?
Tuesday, January 22nd. January 21st is Martin Luther King Day, and anything before that doesn't make the notification requirements, and these meetings are supposed to be scheduled at a regular public meeting of the board, which is tonight, so we don't have a lot of wiggle room here. So I would suggest the first one being the 22nd, and I would also suggest Monday, February 4th for the final public hearing. I don't know if the board feels we need to have 3.
Or we need 3, 4.
You said February 4th? or 20th?
That's my suggestion for the final one. And if there's no need to have that one, then you can, it'll
By
be
3, you
canceled.
mean the first one in between and the final one? Is that how that goes?
Right, well, I don't know how much discussion the board's going to allow on these things. I
So we could go to January 22nd, have everybody here, get all the discussion out, and feel that we don't need to go February 4th.
Sure. I mean, it's up to you whether or not you feel you've had enough public input on the petition warrant articles for zoning change, and whether or not any of the items that the board comes up with have had enough time for discussion. So all I'm saying is, I've learned not to play it too tight to the wire, because then there's always if there's a snowstorm, we're still meeting. The quorum is still meeting. I don't care if you snowshoe here, we're still here and the power's out.
Okay. Mr. Yeah, I'd suggest that meeting on the 22nd, if there's nothing else on the agenda other than zoning amendments, then I'd think that we could hear everything that evening, and then having the one backup date if it needs to extend to February 4th. I really don't think that we're going to need a third hearing, but that's my guess.
Agree, yeah.
Okay, that sounds fine. So let's set those dates and...
Okay, because I'm going to put them in the Record Enterprise tomorrow. I mean, this is how much lead time we need with their publication dates and all the statutory requirements, so that
Are we
would...
not using the Laconia Citizen?
Well, I have enough lead time, we are, but I have enough lead time because this is only January 3rd, tomorrow's the drop dead date, to get it in the local paper, just so perhaps we could have less criticism and a wider audience on this, because it's zoning, it's not specific to a particular project. I mean, I always try, but it just, it usually doesn't fly, and the holidays have really messed up things, so.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. Mr. Gosney?
Has there ever been an occasion where we've published in both papers?
We could. It costs twice as much, but we certainly could.
My suggestion, knowing how everything in the past around this subject was legally challenged, my suggestion would be that we incur the expense and publish in both papers for the first hearing. I don't know that you need to do it for subsequent, but for the first ones, I think it would be a wise investment.
Mr. Kelly?
The only problem I have on that is, anybody reads the Laconia Citizen nowadays, Plymouth is probably mentioned periodically and only if the university has something going on. It's all Guilford, Franklin, Laconia. And very, very seldom you'll see anything in Laconia Citizen, pertaining to Plymouth. So I'm not too sure as to how many people really, local paper, yeah. And maybe, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that my personal observation is that there's very, very few articles in Plymouth, and I don't know how many people in Plymouth actually read it nowadays.
I don't think that's as much the issue as that it just became very difficult with the timing and getting the dates in for the planner to work with the applicant, and still get notice out. Mr. Gosney?
Along those lines, Mr. Chairman, also, if you do a Google search, it will pick up anything in the Laconia paper. It will not pick up anything in the Record Enterprise.
Well, I would concur that, we'll spring for the extra dollars, since this is a particularly sensitive proposed zoning change, I guess, in light of what's been going on this past year.
Let's choose that.
And I like the fact that you mentioned it's a zoning change, which is kind of big for the
Right.
town. It's not just an applicant that we're... So anyway, sounds good. We'll do the notice for 2 papers for the first meeting, January 22nd, and just the local paper for Monday, February 4th.
Okay, may I suggest that someone makes a motion to these 2 dates and the method of distribution, and then I can...
We have a motion. Mr. Wilson, seconded by Mr. Ranlett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Quick question.
Yes.
6:30 for both meetings? Right,
I would say stick with the standard
okay.
procedure.
making sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item...
Just a procedural question. Our next normal meeting is the 17th.
Right. We have 3, maybe, I don't think you were here when I mentioned, we have 3 applications that
Okay.
night, yeah, that I've just received. And just as a point of reference, this was interesting. I was hoping to use the Record Citizen, although we can be flexible as long as it's a newspaper of general circulation. And our deadline for receipt of applications for January 17th was December 26th at 1 p.m. And when I called the paper on December 27th after I received it, the Record Enterprise, their January 1st deadline was December 26th at 1 p.m. So, that's what I run up against.
Wow.
I can't even open the envelope before it's
Yeah.
all over.
Right.
So
It's
it's
done.
like,
You're done before you
it's not
start.
arbitrary or capricious at all. It really isn't, so.
So have those 3 hearings been advertised?
In the Laconia Citizen, yeah, I just put them out early, and I got the abutter letters out, so. But, I tried to get, I tried.
Yeah, you just can't. Yeah,
Can't
Record
win.
Enterprise is difficult.
But at this point, we don't know what those applications are, unless we...
You haven't received your packages yet, I'm still processing them. I can tell you, there's a lot line adjustment, a site plan for something the ZBA approved, and a design review, basically.
All right, so that brings us to item B, discussion of any additional proposed planning board generated changes to the zoning ordinance for town meeting.
Mr. Wilson had brought up about, excuse me, the downward-facing LED lights, and I mentioned that to Brian Murphy, and he's going to, I think we had had the conversation anyway, with this group that probably was best put in as an offshoot of the sign specifications,
Okay.
which, Brian somewhat administers. So he's going to get back to me with some language, which I'll have for you on the 22nd on that one.
Okay, if I could, I'm not sure that Mr. Gosney was available that night. And since he's our guru on LED, what I suggested was that for all of the reasons why LED street lighting, downward-facing street lighting is so effective, it's for all of those same reasons why it is probably a safety hazard if it's used for illuminated business signs that are facing traffic. That in places where I've seen them on a dark night, the lighting is very intense, very focused on the road, and is really very distracting. And so it was for that reason that I brought that up.
Any other discussion on other changes?
I hate to interrupt again, just so I'm clear, so for the hearing on the 22nd, is there going to be a public hearing on this change?
On which change?
The
On
lighting
LED?
change?
Yeah,
Okay, so it's, so that'll be part
so
of
it'll
the...
be submitted, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that was brought up. I don't know if we have anything anyone,
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Roach.
The last time we talked about on Tenny Mountain Highway, and I don't know if this is a zoning thing, about design standards for buildings out there. Is that something that would be in the zoning change, or is that more of?
well, we don't have design review standards per se. I mean, that's something we could pursue.
Right.
I think you could put something in there to say that design review standards, if the group agrees, shall be enacted, because you have to come up with some particulars.
Right. I know one thing that we talked about was not in the future allowing any metal type buildings. You know, if someone's going to build out there, it would have to be like a brick building or a wood frame building as opposed to.
Yeah, that's fairly problematic with today's construction standards. I
Yeah.
mean, like, for example, Tractor Supply,
Yeah.
that was metal component panels
Right.
with metal framing.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of thing, like I said, design standards, you'd have to work
Yeah, I
it
know, it
out
does
as a
get tricky,
group and
yeah.
really be careful about what you're, what you're asking for.
Right.
Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, it was my understanding that we would work on design standards, but it would come as part of the Tenny Mountain Corridor
That's
plan.
true,
Right.
yes.
That it would be,
Separate.
it would come out as a part of that.
Right.
The recommendations.
Which would deal with issues like Mr. Kelly talked about at the last meeting, about the size of buildings, the location of buildings on the highway, and then we could talk about
The facade.
design standards and so forth.
At-
It would be all together.
Yeah, and at that point, you would have an opportunity, it would be at the next year, let's say, town meeting, but you would
Right.
have something concrete and specific to put on the warrant
Right, right.
to be approved as
Yeah,
a
that
design
makes sense.
standard.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Is that building up on the traffic circle done for the year? I saw you had excavators out there for,
Garage.
a rental excavator out there for
the traffic.
a couple of weeks, and he scratched
Old
around.
garage out
I
there the
went-
guy's built.
I went by there today, and there's
Which traffic?
absolutely, he's got an old car sitting out there, been sitting out there for a couple of weeks.
What do you mean on 3A, the traffic, not the roundabout, the traffic circle on
Traffic
3A?
circle,
That's-
Everything's gone, but now the excavator's gone, and it doesn't look like anybody's plowed.
Well, he doesn't have a
the place.
building permit yet, so, other than to do initial clearing, he did, that was Mr. Besso, his approval, his site plan approval, if you remember, was contingent on him submitting an updated or expanded site plan, because he basically did the matchbook cover thing, and we nagged him for 3.5 months, and it's just come in, and I haven't looked at it yet, but Brian is holding up the building permit till Brian and I look at it, as you folks recommended. So I really couldn't say, John, but I know he shouldn't be proceeding, so it probably is closed up.
Yeah, I know,
what
he
he's doing.
scratched the surface and
Yeah,
dug up some
yeah.
rocks, but that's about.
Yeah, but he didn't get that to us very quickly, so. pulling teeth, actually.
Item 8, unfinished and other business. I have one question going back to item 7A for the public hearings that are coming up. How many properties would be affected with that proposed zoning change, and do we get, I mean, is there any obligation for the town to send out a notice to a property owner that may be out of state? Because this is really going to impact them financially. I mean, this is, for a property owner, it's basically, their land is their bank account, and it's like telling someone who, an attorney in town, we're gonna limit how much you can take out of your own bank account. And I have concerns about, yes, Mr. Gosney?
First off, personally ditto. Second, in the past, from a legal standpoint, we didn't, but
We didn't.
We did not in the past. When we had the 2 petitions in 2005, we just published all the notices. It's almost like a regional impact.
Definitely.
If you can't develop appropriately in a part of the town, regionally it impacts the entire town.
Right.
Kind of the deciding factor that was used to not single out any one particular property that was being referenced. But it's important. It would have been nice if we actually had one of the reporters here tonight to actually get a story in the paper, because it does have a regional impact on the entire town, what goes on out there in that corridor.
I think they will be coming to the public hearings on that. When we do meet on the 22nd, I do have the tax maps all put together, so, I mean, it's rudimentary, but everybody can see kind of the overview, and I know Ray's got his handy-dandy toy there. And what we're going to do is identify the parcels by ownership, just so everybody knows exactly what's where in terms of the developed or undeveloped land. And, you know, I'm sure that'll be some points for discussion. I mean, we could send letters to the landowners along the corridor. I don't know about the legalities of sending certified mail, plus that's a cost.
I wouldn't.
But an FYI,
Yeah, this is
it's going to be,
huge.
it has a potential for a huge impact.
Lots of value.
Oh, actually, and I think I mentioned it to you folks before, Town Council has received all these petitions as they've come in, because we definitely want his opinion on, you know, exactly what kind of impact it would have in terms of, you know, is this illegal?
Right.
Is this a taking, a de facto taking, if it were to pass, of land out there that people could not develop? I mean, those are things above our pay grade, so.
So he's reviewing that now?
Should be hearing back from him the first of next week.
I know in the 80s, there was a court case very similar where they zoned his rights away on the ocean, and he sued and won.
I know that it's very complicated and ponderous, but if a majority of the landowners, I think they still have time, protested the petition, they could file a protest, but it's complex. And it's nothing that we do. It would have to be a landowner's initiative.
The landowners that would be impacted.
Yes.
Mr. Gosney?
Can I approach?
Sure.
I mentioned to Sharon that one of the things that we could do for the hearing is you can take the Google Earth, and of course you can move this around and blow it up and do all kinds of things, but you can actually project this on the wall, and it's just a great way to be able to do anything you want to be able to do during the course of the meeting to get a sense of what's actually going on.
It's pretty accurate, huh?
Looking at tax maps and things like that are very necessary, but when you've got an aerial view of what's actually going on, and when they talk about 500 feet off the river, it gives you a sense of not only what's happening
It's like having
on one side of the river, which we tend to talk about, but the way the language is, it applies to both sides of the river. And we've just never really focused on that part of the discussion in terms of really doing that. But if that's something that would be helpful, I could work with Sharon and we could set that up so that if you wanted to use that, it would
At
be
night.
available with the projector.
I think it'd be great for
Yeah.
It's a
everybody
huge,
to...
Ray, is that, isn't there something that there shouldn't be any development on the northern side anyway? I've heard rumors about that
Northern side of what, sir?
a northern side of any development on the northern side of Tenny Mountain Highway.
That's, the master plan says that.
Yeah.
Doesn't say that.
Well,
it says, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Doesn't
Go
say
ahead.
that. It refers to the preferential, but if that's only one section. If you read other places, it clearly indicates it is developable.
Okay.
So it's just, there's no restrictions in there.
No, it's, zoning is what would restrict it, but I think
Yeah.
what Mr. Kelly was referring to is correct, that there is mention of it someplace
In the master plan.
in the master plan.
Yeah.
Now, does that show the 500 feet?
Only the south. It doesn't mention north, I believe, does
Yeah.
it say only
Right.
south?
Right. The language in there that's referred to then, when that's done, only speaks to what was found to be preferential area.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't exclude it.
Yeah.
It just does preferential.
Does it show the 500 foot?
No, it doesn't. You just have to move it around to get a sense of that.
But I'll have that on maps for the board to use. It. Like I said, it's cut and paste, but
Cut and paste the old-fashioned way.
you can see it. Right.
Kind of like the mini.
All right. So that brings us to item 9, public comments. Seeing none. Item 10,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn, seconded by Mr. Wilson. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. 6:57.